Welcome back to another North Carolina Tar Heels basketball recruiting podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching us on our YouTube channel, that is called Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is our director of basketball recruiting and analyst, longtime college AAU and high school coach, Mr. David Sisk. And David, the Tar Heels got one just inside 2023. They're off to a bang with this year, but really this connects back to a week ago when Elliot Cadu committed. James Brown is 6'10", 223 pounds, out of St. Rita High School in Chicago. The number 29 overall player in the class of 2024 has committed to play at North Carolina. I'll get into some of the other info about him, but tell us your thoughts. James Brown is the third member of Carolina's class of 2024.
Well, I want to go there first because I think we've just published a story and we're talking about this as soon as the commitment happened. The recruiting role right now, you could say that Hubert Davis is on. In this 2024 class, they have identified the players that they want, because you're talking about all three of these players taking official visits as juniors, to the University of North Carolina. It's not been somebody sight unseen. Well, I got a North Carolina offer, I want to go there. They've taken officials, and normally, you're talking about guys doing it their senior season and then doing it, right before early signing period or something like that. And the one big thing here, it's not right now. Elliot Cadu has said he wants to stay in the 2024 class. So that's what we're going on right now. But if you look at James Brown and you look at Drake Powell, those guys are probably, they're going to be 2024s. We're not looking at guys moving up and doing it to get it over with and reclass and all that stuff. So you're talking about guys who have been identified by Hubert Davis and his North Carolina staff as who they want. And you're looking as of January the 2nd of their junior season having committed. So, we may be next year at this time, with the 2024 classes, if they look to add anybody or anything, we may be sitting here asleep, because they're getting it done quickly and early. So, and I would say, as you look at team rankings, definitely a top 5, top 10 team. I would say a top 5 right now. I've not looked at the team rankings. This is all kind of happened kind of quickly, but you have to really give them a lot of credit there. Talking about North Carolina for making the move. So that's really the first thing I wanted to address. And the second thing, James Brown, a big 6'10", long, athletic-looking kid. You and I spoke before we went on here. You watched some tape on him, and you said, he really looks like he's got a high ceiling. You really don't want to call it a project. I don't think you would call a number 29 player in the country a project, but you can kind of see the upside with just length and athleticism and those type of things. And he's the type of player, if you kind of look of what he's done with St. Rita, they're, I don't think 13 games in or 8-5. And he's averaging right around 12, 13 points a game, 9 rebounds. And if you go back and look at his stats, we do a weekly prospect review on here where we go back over every game that they played, give stats, give scores, all that. With the exception of one game where he had a low scoring output, his numbers, rebounds, and points across the board have it's been steady. He's just what you get. 12, 13 points a night, 8, 9 rebounds a night. And it's across the board, a couple of block shots, protects the rim. So, right now you've got that kind of guy who's Chicago league. So you look at their team, they're 8-5.
It's a good league.
This is not like a team that's just steamrolling everybody or somebody that's really bad. You're looking at a team that plays a lot of close games in a very competitive, Chicago Catholic League, as competitive as anywhere in the country. And you're looking at a guy that every night as a junior is borderline double-double every night. He's had a couple of double-doubles already. He's had a couple of games where he's been really close. So like we said, 13 rebound or 13-point, 9 rebound kind of guy, and in that range, on a nightly basis.
Also offered by Duke, Michigan State, Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Florida. Like a lot of the big programs obviously want him. All the Midwestern schools wanted him as well. Sean May was his lead recruiter. And I'm going to go to the video, like what I watched. One of the things that just jumped out at me, you were saying project. I'm going to say raw. There's a rawness to his game, but he's also got some skill already. It's not like here's a guy that they need to have carry a basketball around campus 10 hours a day in his hand to get used to it. One of the things I like about him is that he's fairly comfortable handling the ball on the perimeter. He looks pretty good in transition, and he's a willing passer. He's a guy that in a lot of the clips I saw going to the basket, he'll kick out for a three, he'll kick to another cutter. So he's got pretty good vision. He's got pretty good awareness. And it looks like there's a well-rounded basketball IQ there. But there is a rawness that maybe when he gets to Chapel Hill, it may take a couple of years before he morphs into the player that he's eventually going to be. And that's okay. That's a great place to do it. And I think we've seen so far with Hubert Davis, he's okay bringing in some guys that are going to take some time and take some work. That's what his mentor did. And I think that's what he's doing here. But at the same time, David, you have that guy, but he's also number 29. He's also a really good player, one of the top players in a great league in Chicago. So I think that this is a great situation for North Carolina.
Yeah, and keep in mind, as a junior, he's still got 55, 60 games left to go in high school.
Yeah.
And you're talking another 17 months of high school before he graduates and gets on campus and then goes through the summer stuff. So,
yeah.
The project, you think about it, if it does take a couple of years, let's say 2 years, then you're talking about a guy 4 years away. But you've got to think, how much progress could he make in 2 years, in that time? So, that's the thing. Obviously, a player that's ranked that high, the potential's there. There's a big difference on looking at a guy. And I almost got to the point where in rankings, I just want to see how it pans out. I'm not going to say on any player, just kind of watching kids across the country, whether it's guys ranked number 30 or number 3,000. I'm not going to say, hey, this is a guy, yeah, he's going to make it, or this guy isn't. We just need to see how it pans, how time goes. So, that's what Hubert Davis is going to do. Hubert Davis trusts his eye. And, big guys, take work. There are very few centers coming out of high school that are ready. So they're really all kind of in that boat. So if you take bigs one and done coming into college, they've got so much potential, like whether you have an injury or not, you go back and think about a Greg Oden or somebody like that, it was just generational. And who knows, injuries and all that stuff. But, it takes time. So Hubert Davis sees that. And I think what I try to do and what you're looking at, I think the smart way to do it when you evaluate these players, don't look at them as a 16-year-old. You're thinking, well, what's this guy going to look like when he's 20 years old? I asked Rick Barnes one time about Grant Williams. If you would have told me Grant Williams would be starting for the Celtics when I saw him play 17-year-old EYBL, I mean, I would have mortgaged a house the other direction. And he just said, I said, look at the guy and said, hey, if we can get 35, 40 pounds off of him, what do we got? And, that's the bottom line. So, it's all potential with these bigs, but I think it's all potential with any player.
Well, and that's why I pointed out the willingness to pass. And that's why I pointed out some of the handle improvement. Also, when I was watching, first time I watched clips of him, I was trying to figure out early on, is he left-handed or right-handed? Because he was very comfortable with both hands. So those are things that a guy at his age has. That there's been work done. There's been a lot of drill, and the guy is not, afraid to get out there and just bust his tail. A lot of these guys do so much work when nobody's watching. And that's what makes players great. Yeah.
Let me say one other thing
Yeah.
on that while you're talking about that, but trying to go back. I don't want to change subjects and
Yeah.
go back to it. Well, I'm still trying to figure out right now, and I think we all are, what's Jalen Washington and what's Will Shaver.
Yeah,
We don't
that's
know
true.
yet. And he's 2 years younger than they are. I mean, they've
Yeah.
got 2 full years. So we're still trying to guess on them. What are they
Yeah.
going to be next year? What are they going to be when James Brown comes in 2024, 2025, if he stays in his class, which we think is going to happen. But if he does that, is it Jalen Washington and Will Shaver while we wait on James Brown to develop? Where will they be? So, like I said,
Where will
it's
Zayden
a
High be?
process. Yeah.
Where will High be?
Yeah,
So
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, Jalen
Absolutely.
Washington didn't even play against Pitt the other day, and Shaver has the injury, so I don't expect. He wasn't going to be an impact player this year, but he's losing valuable time to progress his game. So you're right, but again, it goes back to me where I think Hubert is okay bringing in some guys to take some time because he wants program guys, and I'm not gonna say obviously he would take a one and done type. He was cool with Gigi, and there are a couple other kids that could be coming in or are coming in that could be one and done types. So you want big time talent, but at the same time, a lot of coaches don't embrace the 4 year kid as much. And I'm not saying Brown's a 4 year kid. I'm just saying that's kind of maybe how we see him now, as much as Hubert, because Hubert understands the whole building a roster, maintaining a roster, and how important it is having program kids that are really good players and that get better and better each year. I think that's what North Carolina is going to be for the most part under Hubert. It's what it was when he was there, and he'd like it to be that way now. And it was pretty much that way with Roy as well. So I think that's a big part of this. And also, get them now. They've got 3 kids, and this is where I want to go now, David. Class of 24, they got 3 kids. Like, they're almost done. So when they go this summer to watch kids, yeah, they'll watch those guys. They'll continue to recruit them because they can't sign until next November. But they can really start zeroing in on 25s, which they have. You've written about a couple of 25s so far. So this makes their recruiting effort moving forward a lot easier for 25. And then they can start even watching 26s. It's amazing that we're talking 25s and 26s now, but that's what this allows them to do, David.
Yeah, and I think the curious thing. So let's talk about what's left out there in 24.
Yeah.
Ian Jackson is going to be in on a visit this weekend. That's a big one. And you still got Boogie Flan. Okay, that's a guy in play. I think Jaron Stevenson is the guy, and we've already seen it. As soon as the message boards broke, as soon
Yeah.
on our Four Corners board, as soon as the announcement came that James Brown committed, they're like, well, what about Jaron Stevenson? And you forgot about, well, I was talking about these guys. I even forgot about Zayden High. I wasn't thinking about this recruiting class.
Yeah.
But you've got those. And so the question is, where does he fit? Now, him and James Brown are different positions. I think he's a true power forward, where I think James Brown's the center. But, you've got High in there. You've got Washington, who can play the four. So where do they – only Hubert Davis knows. So, and I already got – while we were talking here, I had a guy DM me who follows it very closely, and he says, well, what's that mean? Does that mean they're out on Stevenson? So all this is going to go around. So, it creates quite a buzz where they'll go. And I don't think right now that you can say, because we don't know what the roster is going to look like next year, because the transfer portal changes all this.
Yeah.
We know who the seniors are, but who doesn't come back? And, so that's one thing that we start doing automatically is.
And who's not back in 2 years?
Mm-hmm. There's a difference in looking at it and saying, okay, who's going to declare early and go to the draft? Like, for example, you would go back since I've been here, Daron Sharp, would be a guy after his first. Good gracious, how good would he be if he was still in college?
No
But you had him, and so you're thinking about that. We've thought about Baycott, some of the guards in the past, and all that. But now it's really been kind of a question with the makeup of this roster. who stays, who goes. So, we know the bigs are going to go. They'll be gone next year. But we still don't know about the guards. But then you start looking at, like I said, some of these underclassmen are thinking, well, I've been here 2 or 3 years. I'm not playing. Do I go somewhere else? And we don't know. So, it's very interesting. I know if you're in the business we're in, that it's, man, you're watching that transfer portal. I mean, as soon as the last game's over, I mean, you're up watching that transfer portal next morning. So it's
let me ask you this: with respect to Stevenson, how much could this also be a situation where Hubert and the staff project Brown as a 3-4 year guy, and they articulate that to Stevenson, and maybe Stevenson's projected as a 2-year guy, so he doesn't really see there much interference for space right there. Like, it's not like he's going to have to battle him a lot for playing time, because Brown's going to be on a different pace, Stevenson's going to be on a different pace, so that way they can coexist together. I would imagine if that's how they see it, it's been communicated that way.
Yeah, and so when you get one and done guys, it changes things. Like you said, the thing is, gosh, North Carolina, let's say it's one and done or two and done. North Carolina is not really, you talk about program guys, they have really been program guys. This is an old team. They were, what's on the floor now? They were talking about it during a Pitt game. The announcer was, and that was the words. He said, this is a really old team and an old backcourt. And I mean, you've got 5th-year guys, you've got seniors, and I mean, it's not,
and the whole starting 5 is legal to drink.
Yeah, I mean, there's nobody out there on the court.
That kind of puts it in perspective.
There's nobody on the court right now using acne medicine. That's not happening. So, you've not had one and dones, two and dones. You had Cole Anthony, you've had Sharp, and that's been about it the last few years. And of course,
Nasir Little in 19 and Kobe,
we projected Caleb Love might. We didn't know. So, there's just not been a whole lot of it. So, when you start talking about those guys, then you're right. It changes the dynamic. Just the thing is, we've not been used to having that discussion lately.
James Brown, 6'10", 223 pounds, out of St. Rita High School in Chicago. It's been a while since they had a guy from Chicago.
Well,
number 29.
Washington's Gary, Indiana.
Gary, that's Chicago area. Yeah,
we have to throw it out. We have to throw that out with, Sean May has really used it. When I talked to James Brown the last time, he had really talked about those ties, the Mean Streets EYBL. They both played in the same AAU program. Sean May's, originally from Bloomington, Indiana. And he's kind of their Midwest go-to guy. He's built up a lot of relationships, in that Chicago area. So, that's, if Chicago turns out to be a recruiting hotbed for North Carolina, that's a good thing, because I got a feeling, there's going to be players come out of there for as long as we're alive. So,
while we're at it, and I was watching Sean at Peterson Event Center Friday when Carolina was playing at Pitt. I was watching him some during the game. I watch him a lot before the game because he's there with the bigs doing some of the drills. But Sean is someone who is paying his dues and is really turning into potential head coach material at some point. And his recruiting is absolutely spot on. I mean, he's a very good recruiter. He's going to get better because he's going to get more experienced at it. But I see him talking a lot to the kids. He talks to them a lot when they come to the bench. There's a patience thing about him. There's a demeanor to him that I always like when I covered him. He's one of my favorite players to cover because he's just a generally decent guy. When he's angry, he'll express it, but he'll still answer the questions. He'll still talk to you. And I can see him dealing with the kids that way. So you have a dude like that as one of your big time recruiters out front. He can relate to these kids in so many ways, but he's also a comfortable person who's also been there, done that. And that's huge, having someone like that on the staff. So Carolina fans need to recognize what Sean has become as an assistant coach, as a recruiter, and as a potential head coach down the road somewhere. I think he will eventually get a job somewhere, unless he's very comfortable just staying in Chapel Hill, which a lot of dudes are.
And he's young. He's the young guy to staff. And
Yeah.
I know he's been out of college for, over about 15 years, longer than that.
Yeah.
But
Sean
yep,
is Sean's about 37, 38.
yeah, I almost think late 30s. But that's
Yeah.
still young. That's young in the coaching profession. If you think about it. So you hire a guy, well, we've hired uh, so and so as a head coach. We've hired, Andrew Jones. He's 38 years old, young, good looking guy. And that's the first thing that's the first thing everybody think, young, good looking guy. So,
Still think
but
that. They still think that, right?
that's right. So he's that's what I just noticed I just noticed that our listeners that the female dynamic really
Oh,
goes up,
it's
when
going
you're
through the
on, and I
roof.
know I don't have anything to do with that. But anyway,
And
he's a
my
young
wife's got a
guy.
problem with all that too, by the way.
He's a young guy. And so, if anybody on that staff is molding into the head coach, Frederick's been there for a while. He's been in the
Yeah.
game for a good while. Lebo's my age. So, I don't think that they're maybe molding themselves into that head coach. So if you look at that staff and you say, who could be the potential guy, to really get into that side of the profession, you're going to look at Sean May.
Yeah. And Sean hasn't been in coaching for a long time because he played professionally in the NBA and then overseas a little bit. And then he had that sort of exterior type role in the program. He's only been recruiting for several years now. So props to Sean. Not that Sean needs props, but I think that Carolina fans, as they begin to understand his staff and the roles, they got to look at Sean Hart as one of the guys that when he's watching a kid, pay attention to the kid that he's watching because it's an
Well,
important part of the process.
and you're talking NBA now, and I know Coach Lebo, played professionally there, but not for too long a time. He got into coaching, but um, you know, when you can throw the NBA pedigree out in today's day and age, because that's everything, man. That's and
He's got a ring, pedigree, National Player of the Year. He could tell everybody, I got 26 and 24 against Duke. I mean, there's a lot of things, and there's a lot of things that Sean can sell. Not to mention the fact he's just a decent guy. He's a very
when
comfortable dude to be around. So that all works in his favor.
when guys my age, when we would have been college age, and that if you're good enough to go there, well, you thought NBA, and you didn't even think internationally. Then you thought NBA, and if you didn't
Yeah.
get NBA, then you sell insurance or something, And now there's just so many options, just there's so many different levels to go professionally now and make money. So, when you've got, and North Carolina brings that, and this is something that James Brown talked about, those numbers that were retired, that are up in the rafters. When he went and visited, they were talking about getting your name up there and in your jersey, and then all these players that have played there and gone on to the league, that you can be the next one. So, the ability for North Carolina to get someone in that position is huge, but you've got to have experience, somebody, with that experience to really put that vision forward, that they're going to trust it. So,
Yeah.
he's a great, Hubert Davis is a great voice, and obviously Sean May's a great voice for that.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. James Brown, 6'10", out of Chicago, St. Rita High School, the number 29 player in the recruiting class of 2024. He has committed to play at North Carolina, the third commitment from the class. Probably one more, David. That'll probably be about it, at least for guys that will be freshmen when they enter at North Carolina. For David Sisk, I'm Andrew Jones. We appreciate you stopping by.